Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with 5 reasons to watch The Dragon Prince on Netflix. You probably have already heard that me and my lovely friend Yvette from Book Cave are co-hosting a Dragon Prince themed mini-thon that'll be running from November 22nd through the 25th. I will link both of our announcement videos down below so you can get all of the details on that, but it's basically a very relaxed, laid-back, kind of combination readathon, reading challenge, tag, whatever you want to do, whatever parts you want to do of it. And it's primarily to bring attention to the fact that on November 22nd, the 3rd season for The Dragon Prince is dropping on Netflix, and I am so excited. It is one of my favorite shows, I think, ever. I'm so excited to see where the story is going. And we also recently heard that the creators are planning like a 7-season arc, that's what they hope they get, so that they can completely tell the story they want to tell. So that's another motivator for why we wanted to do this readathon, just to bring the show to more people's attention, to remind people of it if it's something that they meant to watch and they haven't gotten to yet. We really want to encourage people to watch it and to use the hashtag and to just basically show the showrunners and the people over at Netflix or whoever makes these decisions that there's a lot of love for the show and that they should renew it for the full season arc. Reason number 1 to watch The Dragon Prince is that it is a classic fantasy storyline executed exceptionally well. I think if you look at the big picture of what the show is about, and I won't get into an official synopsis later, but I will link one down below if you want to read that, but I think if you look at kind of the overarching view, it can sound a little bit familiar, even a little bit generic compared to a lot of fantasy shows or video games or, you know, books even out there. And while I can see why some people would think that, I actually think that the show is incredibly creative in the details of how it tells that story. I mean, for me personally, my enjoyment of a kind of media has never really been about, oh, nobody has ever told this ever before. It's more about how well that is executed, you know, the combinations of tropes that it plays with, or like maybe it has a very familiar character archetype, but the way that they are written or characterized is just so well done that you don't mind. To me, that's always been much more important than pure originality, because I think that's hard to do, and that's not really the point for me. Like, that's not why I read something or watch something, is the idea that maybe no one has ever told this before, ever, in the history of the world. And that's why it's reason number 1 is I think, like, I really want people to give the show a chance, even if they hear about it and they're like, oh, okay, classic fantasy, warring kingdoms, dragons, etc. Like, yes, they have dragons and elves and some of these very familiar fantasy species and tropes, but the dialogue that they give the characters, the complex relationships, and even some of the political interactions between the kingdoms are, I think, much more unique. And speaking of the fantasy genre, another thing I love about this show is that I think it is great no matter how you feel about fantasy overall. I think if you're a newbie to the genre, this could be a great one to start with, because most of the complexity with the show, I feel like, is with the characters and some of the smaller scenes, rather than the overall world building. Like, I don't think it's an overwhelmingly complex political fantasy, and I don't think it's trying to be. Like, I really like that, actually. I like that it's not hard to keep track of who is who, and that's one of the reasons I think it'd be great for newbies. But also, if you are already a fan of fantasy, I think this could still be a lot of fun. Like, I love fantasy, and I still love this show, because it has a lot of those really familiar fantasy tropes that we love, you know, the dragons and the elves and the warring kingdoms and everything. So if you're a fan of that, I think you will still find enough of that here, but I just think it's this really great middle ground for people of all ages and genre preferences. Reason number 2 is that every single character is well developed, with their own personalities, backstories, and motivations. I've mentioned again and again on this channel that I am a very character-focused reader, and I'm also a character-focused watcher. I have pretty easygoing preferences with the plot as long as I care who it's happening to, and that's one of the things that I love the most about The Dragon Prince, is how complex the whole cast is, and even the characters who you meet and they're first introduced in a certain way that kind of pigeonholes them as a particular character type, you very soon will see that that is not the extent of their character, that they have their own backstory, their own reasons for doing what they're doing, their own little personality quirks, and they all just feel very real. And actually, one of the underlying themes of the show is not judging people too quickly, not judging based off of what you assume about them or their background or like who they are. I mean, even the more villainous characters, they have a lot of depth and a lot of interesting explorations for why they're doing the things they do. And the show doesn't try and excuse some of the evil things that happen, but I do think there are believable reasons for why they do what they do. They feel like real people who think they're doing something good. Reason number 3 is that The Dragon Prince is extremely diverse and it doesn't make a big deal out of it. And what I mean by not making a big deal out of it is it doesn't feel the need to justify why Black people exist in this world, for example. And while I do think it's really important in various genres, including speculative ones like fantasy, I think it is really important to have stories that more closely mirror some of the problems with our world. I think it's also really important to have stories told that are not completely bogged down in the things that are wrong with our real world. Like, there is some kind of fantasy-based racism between the humans and the elves, but overall this isn't a show that feels like it has to justify the fact that they have an incredibly diverse cast in terms of race and sexuality and abilities. We have a deaf character, which is something that we still don't see nearly enough of in TV or any mediums, really. Reason number 4 is the humor. I find this show so funny, and I think that is so well done. I love the way that that is balanced with some of the more serious plot elements that are going on. I mean, yes, this is a bunch of kids and teens who are trying to save the world, but they're also just a bunch of kids and teens. Like, it's just it's a very nice break, I think, to have some of that lightheartedness, and it just makes it more enjoyable. It's a very fun fantasy, and even though I think the serious parts of the story are still taken very seriously, that doesn't mean that we can't also have fun. Like, every time Rayla has to pretend to be a human and she thinks she's so good at it and it's not, like, those scenes are just so good, and I just love the style of humor in this show. And finally, reason number 5 to watch The Dragon Prince is the overall depth of the show. And I have alluded to this earlier in the video with talking about some of the really complex characters and themes and everything, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here. If it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about, a lot of the creators of the show also worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, so if you've seen and loved that show, which I know a lot of us have, that kind of gives you an idea that these people are very good storytellers. Like, the relationships between characters are so multifaceted, whether that is family or friendships or other kinds of relationships. Any kind of relationship in this show is treated as important, and it's explored, and the variety of different kinds of those relationships is shown. Like, there's not just one kind of family in this show. There's a lot of complex ways that family members interact and relate to each other and care about each other, or don't care about each other, and it's just really interesting to see that. Another way we see this depth is the exploration of themes and ideas in this show. There are such wonderful discussions about things like revenge versus forgiveness, or responsibility and making choices and doing what you want versus what is best for other people. In addition to some of the things I talked about earlier, like not judging people based on who they are or where they come from. You know, like, we see that a lot with the conflict between the elves and the humans and the dragons. Like, there are just so many serious things that this show does so well, while still being a ton of fun and just having good storytelling on top of that. So those are my 5 reasons to watch The Dragon Prince. I could probably think of others because I just really, really love this show, as I'm sure you're aware of by now. But I really recommend that if you guys haven't checked it out, you do look into it, especially if any of these reasons are things that you are particularly interested in. The episodes themselves are very, very short too. I think they're like around 22-23 minutes, something like that. So it's a pretty low commitment kind of show, and I'm just so excited for season 3. I hope that if you guys have been thinking about trying the show, that you use this opportunity to get into it, or if maybe you thought it wasn't for you, maybe I've changed your mind a little bit, or you're at least going to try, like, give it a try and see how you feel about it, because I really do think it's a show with the potential to appeal to a lot of different viewers. I mean, even my mom has enjoyed it and she hates fantasy. So I don't know, maybe that tells you something about its range of appeal. I also want to mention that I know there was some criticism of the animation when the show first came out. It wasn't as smooth as people were expecting based on Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, they didn't use enough frames or something. I personally did not even notice it, and even after I heard people talking about it, it didn't bother me. But if that is a concern of yours, then they actually remedied that pretty quickly starting in season 2, I think. So if that's something you were worried about, I don't think it's a deal breaker, personally. So please let me know if you guys are fans of the show, if you're going to be joining in for this kind of mini-thon, like the reading part or the watching part or anything. Basically, let's just talk about the show because I love it so much. And if you do watch it, let me know who your favorite character is, or at least one of them, because I know it's really hard to pick. Actually trying to think of mine right now, I don't know if I could. I love them all. Like, I can't really do like a 3-way tie between Ezran, Callum, and Rayla, but here we are. It's kind of what I want to do. Ooh, I also really, really love their Aunt Amaya. So yeah, basically I love a lot of characters. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!